I'm Tom Baker, this is Chasing Cars, and today I'm driving the most impressive Toyota Land Cruiser that you can buy. This is, of course, the Lexus LX 570, a more luxurious version of the well-known full-size Toyota 4x4. But the big Lexus does have some key differences to the Land Cruiser, the main one being that this is a petrol-only vehicle. You may be able to tell by looking at it that this truck is definitely designed for the Americans, and the lack of a diesel engine is a limiting factor here in Australia. But Lexus are hoping that the LX's relatively low price and massive list of standard equipment will be enough to woo you away from something like a petrol V8 Range Rover. Although under the skin the LX is absolutely a Land Cruiser, Lexus have gone to great lengths to show that they can completely remake the cabin. This car is $140,500, so about 20 grand more than a top spec Land Cruiser Sahara, and the interior quality does take a big step up. You sit on these gorgeously comfortable and soft leather seats up here. There's real exotic Japanese woods throughout the cabin to show you that this is something definitely a little bit special. If you spend an extra $16,000, that will give you things like seat ventilation for the front and back. It'll add heating to the rear seats as well. But that said, the seat cooling isn't actually as effective on the LX as in many other Lexuses. Now up here, we've got a beautiful 12-inch widescreen display that's really crisp and looks great. The only annoyance is it's still controlled by Lexus's really unfortunate sort of remote touch mouse controller down here that locks you out of most of the functions while you're driving. That said, the 19-speaker Mark Levinson sound system is really punchy and crisp, so that helps you forget all about that. The LX 570 is in fact an 8-seater, but in terms of back passenger comfort, it's this second row which is really something to write home about. The seats are comfortable, you get these big video screens as well so your rear passengers can enjoy their own entertainment, plus they have their own climate controls here as well. But if you need another 3 people in the car, that's why you've got the third row. So let's jump back there. Having 3 seats in the third row is extremely unusual, and it's a great practicality to have, but keep in mind that these seats are very tight, so it is a kid-only zone.
The third row seats are operated electronically, but once you fold them up, they do chew up some space back there, with 701 litres on offer. Well, the LX is right at home on the big boulevards of Southern California where you see a lot of them, but how does it fare back here in Australia? Well, under the bonnet, we've got a big petrol V8 with no turbocharging, 5.7 litres, 270 kilowatts of power and 530 newton meters of torque. So it can be hustled along. The numbers aren't insignificant, but you're going to have to give it a big boot of the right foot to do so. And if you do boot it, then you're single-handedly responsible for global warming. And that's because the LX's fuel consumption is pretty absurd. The official rating is 14.4 litres per 100 Ks. If you can get it into the low 20s, then you're doing better than I was able to do, though I have been accused of having a heavy right foot. You've got to remember though that the LX 570 is almost $100,000 cheaper than the closest petrol Range Rover with a V8. So that's a lot of fuel that you could buy to make up the difference. Now the LX 570 actually handles quite differently to the Land Cruiser 200 that it's based on, and that's because it has air suspension as standard. It makes it pretty comfortable over a variety of driving surfaces. But actually, you'll want to throw it into Sports or Sports Plus where it does its best work. It's not a sporty car at all, but you'll want to tighten up those dampers, which makes cornering a lot flatter and a lot less ponderous. Steering feel is generally fine in the LX, but it's actually the pedal feel, both the accelerator and the brake, that could definitely use some more work. The accelerator seems to tip in at a funny point, and it's also upper mounted rather than floor mounted, which feels weird with a big capacity engine. And then the brake pedal is so wooden and has so much travel that you only get bite about halfway through, which is also something that you have to get used to. Ground clearance is certainly not as good as the Land Cruiser 200 because we've got a bit of an aero kit happening on the LX 570, but we've got low range, we've got a locking center differential, we've got goodies from Toyota like crawl control and the multi-terrain camera, which means that you can make your way down a difficult track pretty nicely. That said, how many LXs are we really going to see crossing the Nullarbor Plain? They can do it. Most people are going to go for a diesel Land Cruiser because the range of the petrol, even on a 130 litre tank, is, I found, only about 600 Ks, so not the best. It is very safe though. You get 10 airbags, you get the full suite of Lexus active safety features like active cruise control and blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. And the associated Land Cruiser scored 5 stars in the ANCAP crash testing.
If you can handle the fuel bill, the LX is big, imposing, and very comfortable indeed. Nothing else looks like it on the road, and up to 8 will be very happy in this truck. Think of it as a cut price Range Rover or a bespoke Land Cruiser, and it might just suit you.